Hey, good day, good day, good day. It's another episode of Drew's Book Reviews. I am here with my buddy Epic Tales. We're going to have a discussion about fantasy and the different types of fantasy. So, if you want to check this out, stay tuned. That is coming right up here on Drew's Book Reviews. Good day, good day. It's time for another episode of Drew's Book Reviews and a discussion about fantasy here with Epic Tales. This guy's keeping it epic. Check out his channel linked down below. So let's talk about this, man.
You know what's actually very interesting about this video is that we're just having such a natural, organic conversation about it, and midway through, Drew is like, guys, like we should Epic, we should actually talk about this on video and make a video about it. And I was like, yeah. And another thing is that the characters in Grimdark are never black and white. They are always very gray.
I love characters like that, and that to me makes a better story than the inherent black and white dichotomy. It really does, because the reality is nobody is purely good and nobody is purely evil.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes they make decisions that you think you should know better.
Yeah.
But if written right and written well, we could look back and that's like, you know what? I probably would have ended up making the same decision if I was in the same position.
Wow, it's crazy
when you could relate that way.
It's crazy because I was talking about this on the video. I've already released it. Me, Andrew, and one of my friends that's a professor, of creative writing. He talking about why fantasy books are so important in today's world is because people can look at those books and say, oh, this is fantasy and you're reading stuff that can never happen. You're reading about dragons, escapism, but the thing about fantasy is that it helps us abstract ourselves from the real world in a way that, yes, might seem escapist, but that what you said right there about asking yourself, what would I have done in this situation? You have also abstracted yourself from yourself and your conditioning to ask yourself, if I was in the same position as this character, say they made like a dark decision or they did something that was atrocious, right?
Yeah.
It's like, can I really judge them? Like, how can you read a Grimdark book and justify liking characters that do evil things? Because you're not in the real world anymore. You're abstract from it and you are seeing things from their perspective. So if you can ask yourself, right, what would I have done if I was in a situation, given all the circumstances and like my history up until the moment he made that decision, that implies or that suggests that to be able to open your mind to something like that, you have taken something away from the book. And something that is very interesting, like in Africa, for instance, one of the way that children are taught about culture and history that basically influences them for the rest of their life and traditions is through folklore and stories. So they tell stories of heroes, and then these children want to act like heroes. So in a situation, right, you want to influence your kid to behave right. You're like, oh, absolutely, this hero in this story, you're not acting like him, you're acting like the bad guy, and they will correct the way they behave just to fit into that hero mold. So through fantasy stories, we're taking something away from them that we can take into real life and be better people. But so I feel like it's very narrow, very, very narrow, and very very obnoxious to say fantasy is just escapism.
Oh, 100% I agree. One of the great things that I love about fantasy is because so much of it is not our world. I feel like this frees the writer up to really explore the issues, social, economic, political issues that are in our world without the restraints of having it to make sense in our world, which is to be a phenomenal benefit. Based in our world to discuss political, economic, and social issues, you're restrained by the laws and rules of this world in order to explore those issues. But when you put it into a fantasy setting where you make up the rules, you could really help to show and explore these issues much more effectively. It's one of the things I love about Brandon Sanderson and his exploration of a lot of these issues. One of the things that he tackles in his Stormlight Archive is the concept of religion and God. And what I really love about this is I certainly have a religious upbringing. And so when he tackles this within his book series, I found it incredibly amazing how well he did that, expressing the arguments for and against religion in such an articulate way, and using the fantasy setting in a world where there actually is gods and magic, yet still having an atheist character who is combating the very ideas of the religious teachings, which I thought was phenomenally well done.
Wow.
And I love that.
That is very interesting, because to write like I know you're atheist, but like if you're a religious person, to write the perspective of an atheist so well that even an atheist, you're religious but you write the perspective of an atheist so well that even an atheist is like thumbs up. I feel like as a writer, like from like how I look at like how would someone coming from a religious background actually write that? Then those that has to be something that he has spent a lot of time thinking about and considering, you know. And
Absolutely,
and you know, I like either atheist or religious people that have given like thought and consideration to the other spectrum, the other side. You've actually like thought about it and made a decision. You know what, this is best for me, you know, rather than just, you know, bandwagoning or just like, you know, having a strict view on something without perspective of the other side.
Oh, 100%. And it's not just beyond that. And I know I keep talking Sanderson a lot because I love Sanderson, but like he tackles in this fantasy setting, he tackles the issue of slavery. He tackles the issue of political class and economic class. And he tackles the issue of people being born into slavery inherent simply because of the race they belong to, which I think is probably something a lot of people in this world can relate to, you know. And like you mentioned, the history of the African slave trade, we talked a little bit about that. And, you know, just with that history there, I think a lot of people can kind of relate to the idea of being a slave by virtue of the fact that you're of a particular race or ethnic background. And he tackles that effectively as well within this writing.
Like, well, like, you know, I feel like there's something like and it doesn't necessarily mean that the writer is going to, so there's something to honest writing. Now, honest writing in the sense that you're able to have multiple perspectives, and opposing perspectives on a single issue. I feel like that is very important in being a writer, because you cannot really, if you don't know, if you've never experienced hot, you never know what cold is. You need to experience both of them to understand each of them even better, you know. So I feel like as an honest writing is basically honest consideration of both sides of the coin, and honest, like, and also like representing those ideas as accurately as possible. And if he's able to do that, then if he's able to do that in his writing, then I'm sure that he was able to capture it well, you know. And there's a thing like with slavery, I feel like slavery is like black people were like the latest people to get to be enslaved, but slavery was going on in the world as a very common thing before, like, black people were targeted to become slaves. So it's
historically precedent.
It was a historical thing, and like if you read old text, the slavery is spoken about so casually. Oh, we conquered this land, so it's my right that I take this family as my slave. And you know, it was so casual, so we know that it's been happening everywhere, but black people were just the latest people it happened to, you know. Not to diminish what happened, but yeah, like if he's well read on history, like, you know, then he should be able to have perspective, enough perspective to write an honest story account of it.
Yeah, for sure. Especially when you're writing about things that have, especially if you're going to focus on political, social, economic issues in your writing. And, you know, it's not to say you can't tell a good story if you don't know what you're talking about, but it helps. It really helps.
It really does.
You know, having that means to explore that through that fantasy setting, I think is just a phenomenal way to do it. And, you know, even Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time is a epic high fantasy series, or maybe not high fantasy because it is our world technically. Wheel of Time still explores many of these issues, and while it definitely can be presented as good versus bad, there isn't a single character I could think of in Wheel of Time that is purely good or purely bad. You know, even the dark friends think they're doing right half the time at least.
Yeah.
Right? But overall, it's just fantasy rocks.
Fantasy rocks.
It really does. But you know, I think that's probably a good point to finish on. Fantasy rocks.
Fantasy rocks. And I'll say one thing, right? Like, I encourage reading books that are like out of the norm, and you find most of that with indie books. You know, if you've heard enough, if you've heard that an indie book is interesting and it sounds like something you're interested in, go and read it, because the chances are that the reason they didn't get a traditional publisher to publish the book was because it was different. So fantasy rocks, you know, and like fantasy has a lot of potential. So, and
I really do need to read more indie books. And just because a traditional publisher didn't pick it up does not mean it's not good. Yeah. I've read several self-published books, and they are good. They really are. There's some really talented writers out there, and some just choose to go the self-publishing route because they don't want to deal with a big box publisher. They don't want to deal with the Walmart of publishing.
Yeah,
right?
Pretty much.
So with that in mind, you know, thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this discussion about fantasy. You know, make sure you subscribe to Epic Tales. Subscribe to me. You know, hit that like button. Let us know down below, what do you like about fantasy? Tell us down below in the comments. Join both of our Discords. We'll have that all linked below as well. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, until next time, keep on reading.
Stay epic.